Roe v. Wade isn't the law of the land, but the March for Life rages on.
It is a joy and a blessing to fight for the unborn, to work for the unborn, and to march for life.
As Americans, we come out to the nation's capital and stand up for what's right.
Pro-lifers working to change American culture and ultimately make abortion unthinkable. We have team coverage.
Tens of thousands braved the bitter cold to advocate for the unborn. I'm Katie Vasquez, and I'll have that story coming up.
The fight for life isn't just once a year. Every day is a battle.
I remember hearing the words terminate, and I said, excuse me, what do you mean by terminate?
It took all of about 30 seconds to decide, that's not an option for us.
Whether it be on the streets of the nation's capital or in the hearts of mothers closer to home.
They gave me like a paper receipt, and I remember just thinking like years later, like I received a receipt that day in exchange for my baby's life. My fear was greater than my faith.
The Diocese of Brooklyn is protecting the unborn. The March for Life special starts right now. They fought for life state by state, but on Friday, the pro-life movement went national as tens of thousands gathered in Washington, D.C. to march for life and step towards a brighter future. The pro-life movement is gaining traction as President Donald Trump and Vice President JD Vance both gave messages of hope at the march for an America that's for the unborn. It's a sigh of relief for pro-lifers who have been trying to protect babies on the state level since the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And those in the Diocese of Brooklyn feel optimistic about the fight ahead. Currents News' Katie Vasquez joined them on the National Mall.
The National Mall is flooded with tens of thousands of pro-lifers. In this post-Roe America, they march with one common goal: defending the rights of the unborn. Pro-lifers marching with a purpose past the Capitol building and all the way to the Supreme Court.
Work to the faith. Actually coming out and showing, no, this is what we believe and we're going to stand for it.
The March for Life started in faith as thousands celebrated Mass with Bishop Robert Brennan at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. The shepherd of the Diocese of Brooklyn urged the people in prayer to value all human life.
Whenever some lives become expendable, then all of life is expendable.
At a rally ahead of the march, President Trump commended the crowd for their efforts in saving babies in the womb in a video message.
But thanks to your tireless work and devotion across 5 decades, that historic wrong was set right.
And Vice President JD Vance sent an in-person message of hope for the future of the fight.
I want more babies in the United States of America.
The Diocese of Brooklyn marchers feel encouraged by the new administration.
Well, we have a president who loves children, he loves family, and that's why we're here, because a new regime has taken over, and I think one of life and not of death.
Encouraged the fact that he's bringing back God, and with God, anything could happen.
And whether they could be here in person or not, Bishop Brennan knows that the diocese is committed to protecting the lives of the unborn year-round.
People are witnessing to life in so many ways back at home, through walking with moms in need, through their parish outreach programs.
This fight to make abortion unthinkable continues as pilgrims return home, many getting ready for their own state marches, and even more planning to keep this momentum going, praying and protecting babies in the womb any way they can. In Washington, D.C., Katie Vasquez, Currents News.
Thanks, Katie. You can watch Vice President Vance's full speech on our website, currentsny.tv. According to organizers of the March for Life, this demonstration is needed now more than ever. The number of abortions is still well over 900,000 each year, and that number is expected to decrease by only 200,000 each year in a post-Roe America. Many legislative battles also still loom, including keeping the longstanding Hyde Amendment protections. It's arguably the most impactful pro-life policy in our nation's history that has saved more than 2 million lives. It prevents taxpayer dollars from being used for abortions. Here to give us a bigger view of the pro-life fight, also on the National Mall, is the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, John Lavenberg. Hi, John.
Hi, Christine.
John, we just heard some stunning numbers on abortion across the country. Now that it's left up to individual states, voters in many of them have passed amendments to enshrine the right to an abortion in their state constitutions. You've written extensively about this. What's the reaction been from Catholic leaders in those states?
Yeah, you know, the message has been, and it really echoes something Bishop Brennan said today in his homily, which was to persevere even in times of discouragement. So Catholic leaders in these states, they've pledged to continue advocacy, they've pledged to continue walking with moms, and they've pledged to really try and change, as they say, change hearts and minds. So they pledge to continue the advocacy no matter how discouraging the times can get when it comes to abortion laws in certain states.
Yeah, in New York, voters approved Proposition 1 last November, enshrining abortion in the state's constitution. And Governor Kathy Hochul has made fighting for the right to an abortion one of her biggest initiatives. What's the latest in the Empire State? How are Catholic leaders trying to bring about a culture of life?
Yeah, so in New York, not much has changed. In fact, Governor Hochul actually recently said she plans to continue to expand abortion access in the state and intends to continue to increase funding. So the message of Catholic leaders in the state is simply to continue to advocate, to continue to speak out, and to continue to advocate, especially for policies for families, for mothers, and to try and do what they can to advocate for laws, different kinds of laws.
All right, John Lavenberg, national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux. Thanks for keeping us updated.
Thank you, Christine.
One Queens couple is happy they went against doctors' orders to abort because they now have a daughter who has defied the odds. Ahead of the march, Katie spoke with them at their home in Howard Beach.
The brothers.
In 1996, Laura Vasquez learned she was pregnant.
Yeah.
It was a moment of joy for her and her husband, Andrew Rios.
To me, carrying life was God's gift.
I just broke down in tears.
Laura says she had a difficult pregnancy with multiple hospital stays. At one point, she and her husband had a chilling discussion with doctors.
I remember hearing the words terminate, and I said, excuse me, what do you mean by terminate?
It took all of about 30 seconds to decide, that's not an option for us.
The parishioners at St. Helen's Church in Howard Beach leaned on their faith and viewed their daughter as a miracle child when she was born. But days later, doctors noticed some issues.
Her eyes are rolling up. We want to do a CAT scan of her brain.
It took 2 years of tests to get a diagnosis, a rare genetic disorder called Cornelia de Lange syndrome.
Failure to thrive is one of the conditions. Delayed in walking, delayed in talking. So she checked the boxes for all of those.
Isabella is now 28 years old and has defied the odds.
We're doing everything exactly that they said she would never be able to.
She loves to dance and do puzzles, just like anyone her age.
Isabella has a love for life. She loves to go out. She loves to shop.
And although she has limitations, her parents say they always knew God wouldn't give them more than they could handle.
The phone rings and she video calls and says, "Hi, Daddy." That's the best part of my day.
No matter what, I'm going to do everything that I can just to make her live a sound life.
So you like
The Catholic couple happy they chose life because they now have the light of their lives. In Howard Beach, Katie Vasquez, Current News.
There's a lot more pro-life stories headed your way. We hear from the shepherd of the Diocese of Brooklyn, how Bishop Robert Brennan wants you to keep up the fight for the unborn. A New Jersey woman who once had an abortion is using her pain to help moms in need. Plus,
not uncommon. Every time I heard that, I had the same question. So then common.
this stand-up comedian is used to performing in front of big crowds, but now he says his favorite audience includes the daughter doctors told him and his wife to abort. This Current News special on the March for Life. We'll be right back. prayers powered the marchers before they took to the streets of Washington, D.C. Ahead of the March for Life, thousands gathered at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception to pray for it, taking part in a vigil that began Thursday evening, extended through the night, and ended with a mass celebrated by Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan. In his homily, Bishop Brennan thanked the scores of pro-lifers for their commitment to the cause, saying the fight for the unborn is at the center of so many Catholic teachings.
We witness to the basic human right with respect for the dignity of every person created in the image and likeness of God in every circumstance. But how will we recognize the dignity in one another unless we see it in the child from the very first moment of his or her existence? Without the right to life, without the right to be born, every other right collapses.
Bishop Brennan is no stranger to the shrine. As the shepherd of the Diocese of Brooklyn, he leads one of the largest pilgrimages to the Basilica every year. Before Bishop Brennan made the pilgrimage to D.C. for the March for Life, he stopped by Currents News to talk about the current fight for the unborn. With President Donald Trump recently taking office again, we asked Bishop Brennan what more his administration can do.
Really, it's that consistent, ongoing approach to life and human life and dignity in all of its forms. One of the things that's so important for us, it's less about the legislative piece. That's an important piece, a very important piece. But what we want to be able to do is provide the environment and the support so that we can bring children to birth, so that we can give mothers the help they need, that we can give families that step up. So those kinds of opportunities can make a big difference. The other thing is, you know, there are all kinds of concerns that we have on a pro-life basis in terms of medically induced abortions. And even some of the things about IVF, in vitro fertilization, that creates, in vitro fertilization create embryos, create life, and then discard them. So we have to take some real caution with some of these procedures and find some very sound alternatives. There are very, very sound alternatives. And if we can bring those to light, those are things that could happen.
Absolutely. And New York State is perhaps the most pro-abortion state in the country. The procedure since November is now enshrined in the state's constitution. So how do you convince New Yorkers to continue the fight?
For us in New York, I think as for anywhere, is our number one priority has to be to bring about a transformation of heart and mind in the culture. You know, I always said, even before Roe v. Wade was overturned, that it won't be a legislative victory. Those can happen, but then they snap back. We really have to bring about a conversion of heart and mind, so that build up a society that really values human life, and especially the most vulnerable of human life.
Right, absolutely. You're celebrating the closing mass for the National Prayer Vigil this Friday morning. It's kind of a kickoff to the march. So what's your message to the marchers?
It will be a message of encouragement, tying in the fact that they have been there praying all night. They took different shifts. We began with the Mass on, we'll begin with the Mass on Thursday. They'll have prayed throughout Friday morning, throughout the night, and then on Friday morning we have the closing Mass. So it's a combination of that encouragement of what we do in prayer, and then what we're going to be doing later that day in witness. And in witness, what we're doing, two things. One, we're there as American citizens. American citizens have both not only the right, but the responsibility to participate in the dialogue towards self-government. And then two, as Christians, we're there to give witness to our hope, to our value of human life.
That was Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan. Bishop Brennan, along with the other bishops in New York State, have long been making a pro-life pledge to moms in need. We will not abandon you. They vow that regardless of the mom's beliefs or situation, the bishops will continue to advocate for laws that protect the right to life, no matter its stage. They also launched a resources page. Just go to nyscatholic.org/help for moms, and you can find a pro-life center by you. There's also a statewide map that directs you to local Catholic parishes that have ministries available. In the Diocese of Brooklyn, there are a number of places ready to help. There are currently 2 pregnancy centers, the Life Center of New York on 5th Avenue in Brooklyn and the Bridge to Life in College Point, Queens. In terms of housing options for young mothers with children, there are actually 5 options: 3 Providence houses, 1 on Church Avenue in Brooklyn, 1 on Prospect Avenue, Brooklyn, and 1 in Jamaica, Queens. There's also 2 more Brooklyn centers, the Rose Kennedy Family Center on Halsey Street and Bethany House on Sidham Street. There's also a place in New Jersey looking to offer support to families in need. Cheryl Riley, founder of Mercy House, originally opened her doors to help women who chose life, giving out food, clothing, and baby supplies. But today, the doors are open to all. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has the story from Newark, New Jersey.
Every walk of life.
Newborn baby. Here you go.
Finds compassion here at the Mercy House. This location, one of 3 in the Archdiocese of Newark, serves 100 people a day.
God was like, oh, if you think you're only helping women, that is not what you're doing here. We just help women, children, families, anyone that needed help.
This is all long sleeve women.
When director of the Archdiocese's Respect Life office and the Mercy House, Cheryl Riley, started out, she thought she'd only be helping pregnant women who were contemplating abortion but chose life instead. Women who made the decision she was too afraid to make 40 years ago.
They gave me like a paper receipt. And I remember just thinking like years later, like I received a receipt that day in exchange for my baby's life. My fear was greater than my faith.
On May 30th, 1985, a 19-year-old Cheryl ended the life of her unborn child. What followed was years of unimaginable pain.
After my abortion, I didn't even want to live. That's how bad the pain was.
Through her faith and Rachel's Vineyard, an organization offering retreats for women who have had abortions, Cheryl found peace.
On Rachel's Vineyard, we asked God to reveal the sex of the baby. I didn't even have to think about it. The name Christina came to me. And that's what really helps you heal, is when you put a name. It's your child.
Out of her healing came a new life. Cheryl married and had 3 children, started the Mercy House, and made a promise to God to do his work, helping mothers and anyone else who needed her.
I want to see my baby, and hopefully someday when I die, hopefully I'm going to be able to see her. And that's what I want. And I know I'm not going to be able to do that unless I make it right here.
Cheryl thinks of all the things Christina never got to do. So this is how she honors her every day. In Newark, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, since he and his wife chose life, a comedian says his day-to-day is now filled with even more laughter. Plus, a mom leaned into her faith after being encouraged to terminate her pregnancy. Now her son is a role model for others. This Currents News March for Life special will be right back, but first, some reflections to get you thinking. What do you do to promote life?
Not uncommon. Not uncommon. Every time I heard that, I had the same question. So then common.
Keith Alberstad's life is now filled with laughter, not just from his job as a comedian, but because he and his wife Leslie chose life. Years ago, Keith and Leslie were encouraged to abort their daughter after their doctors diagnosed her with Down syndrome. But the couple turned to God, and now he has blessed their lives with more joy than they could have ever imagined. Currents News' Jessica Easthope has their story from Bloomfield, New Jersey.
I introduced myself as Keith. Apparently, some people have a little voice in their head that says, I bet you he meant to say get.
Stand-up comedian Keith Alberstadt makes people laugh and smile for a living.
Who wants to do a puppet show? Hello, everybody. Hi.
These days, he gets that joy back tenfold at home.
The negative messaging and the jokes and whatever. I'm going to use my platform to give people the other view, the positive messaging of what it's like having somebody with Down syndrome in your life.
Keith and Leslie live in Bloomfield, New Jersey with their 3 kids, 4-year-old Eleanor, 3-year-old Eileen, and 1-year-old Joseph. When Leslie was 20 weeks pregnant with Eileen, she got a terrifying call.
There was just doom and gloom. She still, said the term termination twice in that phone call. The phone call was less than 5 minutes. It's just, it was sad.
Rock your baby. Aww.
Before Eileen was born, her Down syndrome diagnosis left Keith and Leslie with a lot of questions.
One thing that I learned was how much to trust God.
God knows what he's doing, and she's so perfect with Down syndrome.
Just shy of 4 months old, Eileen had heart surgery. Today, she's thriving and competing with Keith for funniest member of the family.
Get rid of me?
He's happy to take second place.
Once we had a daughter with Down syndrome, we became advocates, and it became something that I wanted to talk about on stage.
Here, there's this seed planted, and I think about, with Keith's comedy, you meet Eileen, and then you get a prenatal diagnosis later on of Down. You're gonna think of Eileen.
As Eileen grows, so does Leslie and Keith's advocacy, not only for their daughter, but for every child whose life has been undervalued.
Let's give the parents resources earlier. Congratulations, your child has Down syndrome. Congratulations.
So when Keith steps on stage, he knows Down syndrome has made his heart and his platform larger. And that's no joke. In Bloomfield, Jessica Easthope, Currents News.
Keith has been seen on several late-night shows and has written for Saturday Night Live. You can catch some of Keith's upcoming comedy by visiting keithcomedy.com. Finally tonight, the story of a young model who became a role model for many. 6-year-old Noah Jacob has become the face of a movement, inspiring inclusivity through his modeling career. But if Noah's mom listened to her doctors, who also encouraged her to terminate her pregnancy because Noah had Down syndrome, the world wouldn't know him. She says they gave her little hope and even fewer options.
The baby might be a vegetable, might not walk. Didn't give me any pamphlets on Down syndrome. Didn't give me any, organizations that I could reach out to. Just, here's some clinics where you can terminate.
But Yami found strength in her faith and leaned into what God wanted from her to bring her baby into the world. And now Noah is a role model for compassion, change, and what it means to choose life. And that is this Currents News Update. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Before we go, we leave you with one last look at this year's March for Life. Hope to see you again next time.